Welcome to this evening's program at the Iowa City Public Library. It's our first program in April for National Poetry Month, and we have, help me with this, Stacy, we have a display of poetry books on the first floor, and they're going fast. I saw you restocking them. Nothing like poetry flying off the shelves. 3 times, and then upstairs we have a little pop-up display that has Iowa poetry on it, and we have a lot of Iowa poetry, lots and lots of Iowa poetry. And the more you check out the Iowa poetry, or any of the poetry, the longer it will stay on the shelf. So please do take a look at those collections. And something really fun that I know you'll want to rush up and do after you're inspired by tonight's program is we have what we're calling a not magnetic poetry board, where we have verbs and nouns and adjectives and plurals and articles, and you can make your own poems. So there are 3 walls upstairs on the 2nd floor, and we've got quite a bit of poetry going, and just feel free to dismantle one poem and make a new poem that way. It's lots of fun. Yeah, thank you. I was really excited when Beth Fisher, our program librarian here at the Iowa City Public Library, said, let's get somebody from out of town to come and do a program on poetry. And there's a fellow in the Iowa Humanities list who sounds really interesting. And I said, okay, well, who is it? And how much does he cost, most importantly? And she said his name is Scott Cawelti. And I said, oh, I love Scott Cawelti's voice. I have no idea what he looks like, but I lived in Dubuque for quite a while, and I used to listen to KUNI, and I remember your voice. So now it's nice to put a face and a guitar to that. So tonight's program is sponsored in part by a grant from Humanities Iowa and the National Endowment for the Humanities. And tonight's speaker is Scott Cawelti. He was born and raised in Cedar Falls. He attended the University of Northern Iowa, which is, as you know, located in Cedar Falls, graduating with a vocal music education degree in 1965 and a master's degree in 1968, and a PhD in modern letters from the University of Iowa in 1978. He taught at UNI from 1968 to 2008, a long tenure. During his career at UNI, he taught numerous writing, film, and literature courses, as well as American Civilization, collaborating with 3 other faculty on a humanities cluster course consisting of Humanities 2, American Civilization, expository writing, and oral communication. He's published 2 textbooks and edited the complete poetry of James Hearst. I believe that was the book that you just showed us. And I'd like you all to welcome him to our first National Poetry Month meeting.
Thank you all. Thank you. And thanks to Beth Fisher for inviting me, and to Humanities Iowa especially for actually funding it. So it's a joint effort, and it always seems to work pretty well when people get together and do things as more than just a single person. Single people together hardly do much of anything. Have you noticed? They need a lot of help. It takes a village to do anything. I think that's the way that works. So if you know anything about James Hearst poetry, does anyone here know of him? Or you'd certainly do. Okay. He's pretty well known in northeast Iowa, and then it slides off the further you get away. He was born in 1900 in Cedar Falls, farmed right away. He's from a farm family on a Maplehurst farm on 27th Street in Cedar Falls. And then about 1917, in high school, really just out of high school, or barely out of high school, he went to France for World War I. He was just drafted. And then in 1919, he got out. When the war was over, he didn't really see any action. He got there at the tail end of the war. The armistice was in November, and he came home. And then that June, 1919, he was down with friends along the Cedar River along Island Park, dove straight down into a hole that was 10 feet deep. The year before, it was 2 feet deep. This year, 1919, June. And he broke his neck. And it turned him into a quadriplegic. He spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair. 1983, he lived to be 83 years old. And he moved back into farming. He kept farming. He loved the land. His brother and his father showed him how to work a tractor with prosthetic devices. And he never really stopped farming. But then, instead of sitting around and farming, 4 or 5 months a year, not having a lot else to do, he began writing, paying attention to poets, world poets, reading poetry, and then he began writing poetry. He had a gift for language. And by the time he was in his mid-20s, he'd published. And he began publishing a lot. And for his entire life, beginning in the 30s, he published poem after poem after poem, over 600 poems many of them in major national venues, including Poetry Magazine, New Yorker, New York Times, Atlantic Monthly. He was well known, and Robert Frost would come to Cedar Falls and say, "Hi, Jim." Carl Sandburg. They were friends, and everybody respected and knew James Hearst as a poet. And on campus, everybody respected and loved him as a teacher. So I had him for a graduate seminar, and I thought him to be just one of the most wonderful teachers I had. He really knew how to listen, and his real gift was empathy. I think people that have been through a trauma do get some gift of empathy, and it stays with them throughout their life. And so he really knew what we were feeling when we were struggling with our own problems. So I have to say that I was drawn to Jim Hearst and his poetry when I first began as an undergraduate. Cantata of his was sung. Actually, I was in the group that sang it for the dedication of the music school, Blind with Rainbows. And then I just began following his poetry, taking his classes, talking to him. And then, after he died, Bob Ward began to put together this anthology. And the result is what you have in your hands floating around there, the complete poetry of James Hearst. And as I was writing that, I began thinking, you know, a lot of these feel like songs to me. They have some of the qualities of songs. And I began looking at them for that. And then sooner or later, within a couple of years, I had developed a real repertoire of songs. I turned it into a CD, by golly, 16 James Hearst poems sung, and I have a bunch of them in the car. If you like to buy 7 or 8, I have those with me. And they've actually been well received, kind of to my amazement, because poetry is not, they're not songs really, they're poems, and I have not altered them. Once in a while I add this last verse, rather the last verse of the song I sing is the first verse of the poem sung over. So there's an ABA pattern. But mostly they're just the poems. I didn't do anything. I didn't turn them into little lyrics with cute little taglines. So much of music really is repetition. And these poems are not repetitious. They go right through narrative lines and their lyrics. So really, what you're going to hear is real poetry, really sung, but it's hard because in order to really get it as a poem, you need to listen and listen and listen, just like you need to listen to, read poems a lot to understand them well. So as a result, I'm going to sing each one of these 6 times, and no, just joking. So what I want to do, in fact, is read the very first one you're going to hear. Just read it, and then sing it, and you'll see whether, this is a big question for me, whether the music adds anything. I'm hoping it does. Some people say, well, poetry, when it's really poetry, when you sing it, all of a sudden the music gets in the way. Others say, no, the music enhances it. It really helps it. So we'll see. I probably won't ask that question at the end of the evening. But if you want to talk to me about it, I'd be happy to talk about it. The first poem I'm going to read is a signature poem. Wherever I went with people knowing James Hearst, that poem would be on the refrigerator, be hanging in a study. It would be calligraphied. It would be turned into something they wanted to remember. So the first poem is Truth, like I say, and it was written in 1962, and it goes like this. Just reading it. How the devil do I know if there are rocks in your field? Plow it and find out. If the plow strikes something harder than earth, the point shatters at a sudden blow, and the tractor jerks sideways and dumps you off the seat because the spring hitch isn't set to trip quickly enough, and it never is, probably, you hit a rock. That means the glacier emptied his pocket in your field as well as mine. But the connection with a thing is the only truth that I know of. So, plow it. How the devil do I know if there are rocks in your field? Plow it and find out. If the plow strikes something harder than earth, the point shatters at a sudden blow, and the tractor jerks sideways and dumps you off the seat because the spring hitch is set strictly up and it never is. How's that going? Probably you hit a rock. Now that means the glacier emptied his pocket in your field as well as mine. But the connection with a thing is the only truth I know of. So plow it, so plow it. So, truth with a little music added to it. The next one is a poem about one of the most timely subject imaginable right now, drought. And Iowa's had its share of terrible droughts, but nothing like the people of California are going through, where they're really drying up. The whole region, as you know, is not what it was, and it's going to get way worse, they say, if it ever gets better. But Hearst was familiar with drought because he knew families who had to leave the farm once the well dried up. And once the well's gone, there's no more farm. However, Hearst's insight in this poem is that nature carries on. No matter what happens to the people, nature keeps sowing seeds. And I think that's a wonderful way to remember that we aren't really that important. Nature just carries on no matter what. So this one is After the People Go. It's a little long to read, but we will read some more poetry. I think that's a nice thing to do. No one lives here anymore, they have all moved away. After the well went dry, they left. No one wanted to stay to watch the sun kill the maple trees after the rocks were gone. No one wanted to stare again into the blazing dawn. Bitterness grows in the yard like weeds, bitterness rank and tall. Covers the barren beaten ground where nothing will grow at all. And the sprinkler kneels by the sweet pea bed, rusty and black and bent, marking the place where the flowers died after the people went. After the well went dry, they left. Nobody shed any tears. Like an oak tree, each one bore the judgment of the years. Records of birth and death and love, items of coats and corn, little odd packets from Embry to keep, courage rings like a horn. Even in this burnt country, let the rains come when they will. No one will feel their slanting strokes but the dead upon the hill. And the silence too of a humankind will let the cicadas cry, be the last prayers to heaven, veiled by a metal sky. While nature sows with burning hands, thistle and hemp and dock, to have some crop to harvest beside the crow and the rock. After the fields are empty, after the people go, she will not waste the season, she still has seeds to sow. No one lives here anymore, they have all moved away. After the well went dry, they left. No one wanted to stay to watch the sun kill the maple trees after the crops were gone. No one wanted to stare again to the blazing dawn. After the fields are empty and after the people go, she will not waste the season. She still has seeds to sow. It's a wonderful line. So many good lines. When I choose a poem for a song, it has to have some kind of rhythmic pattern, and also it helps to have rhyme, as you hear here. So he wrote a lot of traditional rhymes. He was very traditional in his early poetry especially, and that makes for a better song. One of his most famous poems, again, calligraphied. Actually, should we do that one? Wasn't what I was thinking of, but I like to do it anyway. It's a good time to do it. This is not one of his favorite. This is a great little song, though. song. No, that's perfect. Good timing. Good timing. You did better than I did. Remember George Orwell's Animal Farm? Some pigs are more equal than others. All pigs are equal. It's the same thing here. Hearst was a great observer of the farm and the farmstead, and he noticed that when little pigs come to the trough, the big pigs push them over. It doesn't matter whether they have all the food they want. Everybody has more than enough. Doesn't matter. The big pigs push the little pigs over. He wrote a whole poem about it called Hog Economy. The little pig stuck his nose in the trough, but the big pig moved him over. He started again where he left off, but the big pig moved him over. He squealed and shivered his whole intent. To give no offense, protesting he went, as the big pig moved him over. He bristled with signs of a small pig's right, but the big pigs moved him over. He struggled and bit with the small pig's might, but the big pig moved him over. In the trough was his dinner without fork or plate. His hunger's edge warned him not to wait. Though the pig was little, his need was great, but the big pigs moved him over. He trembled, the little pig did, in despair, as the big pigs moved him over. He pushed for the trough like everyone there, but the big pig moved him over. He panted and wrinkled his small pig's face. There was plenty to eat. Was size his disgrace? But the length of the trough in place after place, the big pigs moved him over. Yes, length of the trough in place after place, the big pigs moved him over. Those big pigs. You just can't win when you're a little pig. Size matters. See? What have you got now?
I think I picked for the file for afterwards for the big pig, so now I have landscape Iowa.
That's good. That's just exactly right. Now, this is the poem that people love because being from Iowa, most of us are from Iowa. Is everybody here from Iowa? No. You're not from Iowa. Oh my God, what are you doing here? What? If you've lived here long enough, you've gotten the age-old question, where's Iowa? Is that where they have potatoes, Buckeyes? I've lived in Germany and Sweden both, and they had no idea where Iowa was. And then I go to New York, and they have no idea where Iowa is. LA, people just don't know where Iowa is. So, and they don't know anything about it. And Hearst knew this, so he wrote this wonderful poem which describes Iowa almost perfectly. There's one line that actually captures the whole state, I think, and we'll talk about that a little bit after we read it and sing it. Mr. Baker, would you care to read the poem, please? And do it slowly. You can read with them. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, you can't see it. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. You can talk. You can use the microphone if you like.
Please do use the mic. Yep. Can you see it from there? You have to angle your head.
Well, that'd be even better.
I'm going to assume that you can hear me.
No, we can't hear you on.
Oh, I got to do it up here.
This is all set to go.
Ta-da. Can you pick it up here? All right. All right. Do it slowly.
Yeah, with a lot of feeling.
Oh,
We'll get into it.
yeah. All right, here we go.
Jump straight into it.
Okay. Landscape. No one who lives here, no one who lives here knows how to tell the stranger what it's like. The land, I mean. Farms all gently rolling, squared off by roads and fences, creased by streams stubbed with groves. A land not known by mountain's height or tides of either ocean. A land in its working clothes, sweaty with dew, thick-skinned loam, a match for the men who work it, breathes dust and pollen, wears furrows and meadows, endures drought and flood. Muscles swell and bulge in horizons of corn, lakes of purple alfalfa, a land drunk on spring promises, half crazed with growth. I can no more tell the secrets of its dark depths than I can count the banners in a farmer's eye at spring planting.
Never having seen that poem before, that's
Yeah.
the first time I've ever.
It's a wonderful reading, Larry. My golly, you should come up, you should do this more often. We could go on the road together. Yeah. Exactly. Well, as you can tell, it captures the land in a way which few poems ever do. This particular land and the characteristics of the land, the metaphor of the farmer as the land. The farmer becomes the land, of course. So it really is a catchy, wonderful poem. And I hope the music does it justice. This was a hard one to write because I really wanted to make these words sing. One thing about wood, it stretches and goes out. No one who lives here knows how to tell the stranger what it's like, the land I mean. Arms all gently rolling, squared off by roads and fences, creased by streams, stubbled with groves, a land not known by mountains' height or tides of either ocean, a land in its working clothes, sweaty with dew, thick skin alone, a match for the men who work it. Breeze, dust, and pollen, wears furrows and meadows, endures drought and flood. Muscles swell and bulge in horizons of corn, lakes of purple alfalfa, a land drunk on spring promises, half crazed with growth. I can no more tell the secrets of its dark depths than I can count the banners in a farmer's eye at spring planting. No one who lives here knows how to tell the stranger what it's like, the land I mean. Arms all gently rolling, squared off by roads and fences, creased by streams, stubbled with groves, a land not known by mountains' height or tides of either ocean, a land in its working clothes, a land in its working clothes. Did you get the line that captures Iowa? I only said it like 8 times. A land in its working clothes. Is that not perfect? It is. You get that feel. It's not industrial. It's lots of everything, but all together, it's people out working. That Midwest work ethic is captured in the land, and it's a wonderful poem for that. Do you have no answer next? Okay. Well, this is one I just wrote recently, actually, about 3 months ago, so it's not on the CD. And I think it captures Hearst's occasional foul moods. Have you ever been in a foul mood for no reason? You ought to have, we think we ought to have reasons for foul moods, but in fact, foul moods happen with no reasons at all. So he wrote this I think it's a very funny poem. Why do I feel so lousy this morning? Sun rose up with a fuzzy eye, didn't make up its bed of clouds. Birds, racket, shatters the air, if you like dew. Well, it glistens. Means wet feet on the garden path. Well, I slept well enough last night, so why do I feel so lousy this morning? Car starts, faucets don't leak, rain's enough to keep the lawn happy. Flowers do bending and swaying. Had scrambled eggs and mushrooms for breakfast, my favorite dish. But my mouth tastes awful, coffee too strong, so why do I feel so lousy this morning? Headlines are worse than yesterday's. Accidents all over. Everybody on strike. Nobody worth a damn won a baseball game. That girl I met, full of joie de vivre, called for an appointment. My blood ought to jump instead of slog along. Quite a chick. Why do I feel so lousy this morning? Morning. You had that feeling? Well, James Hearst, in spite of his terrible infirmity, was romantic. He had two wives, actually. One died. They both died before him. He outlived them, but he was greatly in love with his wives, and the rumor had it, I always thought these were just rumors, but the rumor had it he had several girlfriends among the students. Did you ever hear that? Okay. Yes. He was one of a few faculty that was known for his womanizing, but tolerated because he was so good-natured about it. And also, nobody could quite believe it. This is the most wonderful little minimalist love poem you'll ever hear. And I would like Candida Maurer to read this one. Could you do that? Just read it really loud and expressive, my dear.
And slow.
And slow, always slow.
Forsythia, you said,
Stay right into the mic.
all right, Forsythia, you said, take a few dry sticks, cut the ends slantwise to let in water, stick them in the old silver cup on the dresser in the spare room, and wait for the touch of Easter. But a cold wave protected the snow, and the sap's pulse beat so low underground I felt no answer in myself, except silence. You said winter breaks out in flowers for the faithful, and today when I opened the door, the dry sticks spoke in little yellow stars, and I thought of you.
Yeah. You see how that works? He's a doubter, and the wife, the partner, is the believer. So you've got faith and doubt all encapsulated here. And it's really a wonderful capturing of love. And also the spirit of Easter and the spirit of faith. You said, take a few dry sticks, cut the end slantwise to let in water. Stick them in the old silver cup on the dresser in the spare room. And wait for the touch of Easter. But a cold wave protected the snow, and the sap's pulse beat so low underground. I felt no answer in myself, except silence. You said, winter breaks out in flowers for the faithful. And today when I opened the door, the dry sticks spoke in little yellow stars, and I thought of you. You said, take a few dry sticks, cut the ends slantwise to let in water. Stick in the old silver cup in the dresser in the spare room, and wait for the touch of Easter, and wait for the touch of Easter. I guess I would have to say of all the Hearst poems and songs, that's my favorite. Isn't that, well, I can't say. Don't you just think that's wonderful? Can't say that. It is really memorable. Okay, we have, yes, all right, good. We're in tune here. Hearst did have a great sense of humor. We spent a lot of time in class laughing. And he wrote this poem, never got it published, I'm not sure why, but it certainly captures a mood most of us have felt, being surrounded by machines that don't work some of the time, and they seem to not work in groups. When one stops working, two or three others stop working. I don't know if you've noticed that. And he captured it all in this line, the malicious spirit of machines. Right, let's start over there. Right in our own house, stealthy, malevolent, obscured by the appearance of innocence, a mafia works for our downfall. Days go by smoothly without a threat or warning, and when we least expect it, the blow falls. It is cold calculation, plan to betray our dependence on things. First, the dishwasher throws suds in my wife's eyes. The disposal chews up silver spoon. My electric razor ignores the switch. Then the big guns start firing. The furnace goes on strike. The washing machine eats a sock. The kitchen stove remains cool. Our shutters twice. And then plays dead. Always this happens on weekends or holidays when there is no one here. Our cries for help. Right in our own house, stealthy, malevolent, obscured by the appearance of innocence, a mafia works for our downfall. Is that not true? On the CD, we got a bunch of sound guys to come in and make all the sound effects. The razor, and the car, boom, boom. It was sort of fun. Okay, another poem I just wrote to go with the words. Nostalgia is one of the major poetic themes. Ubesunt, we used to call it in literary study days. Where are the snows of yesteryear? And this is Hearst's nostalgic song for the way things used to be. Don't we all wonder once in a while, where are the snows of yesteryear? This is a wonderful poem. And in fact, I would like someone to volunteer to read this, or would anybody like to come back? Was read already? Or is there somebody that feels like, Larry, would you like to come back? And you have...
If there's no one to volunteer.
Does anyone else feel hankering to read a little? This is only 10 lines? Okay, Larry, you're elected. You see, you shouldn't have done such a good job on the first one.
I'm not sure that I can know all the words.
Where did they go?
Slow, fast, just
Slow, real nice and slow,
slow. All right.
with a little weepiness if possible.
Where did they go? Where did they go? The maple grove, the rolling hills, the rows of corn, the meadowlark's repeated tune. This is the land where I was born, now in time's quicksand sunk too soon. I see it now, with memory's sight, the dappled days of sun and rain, the field's gate through a leafy lane, where once I scoured the mold-board bright, but will not plow again. I had to press myself.
Well, all of us are moving along a little in life, and there certainly is that feeling that things that we used to do with ease now have become hugely challenging. I ache in the places where I used to play, that Leonard Cohen lines, yeah. Well, many times when you're looking for melodies, you borrow, you glean, you figure out melodies you know. What I'm using now is a melody from John Riley, an ancient meaning 500-year-old English folk tune, fair young maid, only in the garden, strange young man passer by, said, fair young maid, will you marry me? Says, this then, sir, was her reply. Okay, here we go with the first poem. Where did they go, the maple grove? Rolling hills, the rows of corn, meadowlarks' repeated tune. This is the land where I was born. Now in time's quicksand, sunk too soon. I see it now with memory's sight, dappled days of sun and rain, fields gay through a leafy lane, where once I scoured the moldboard bright, but I will not plow again. Where did they go? Rolling hills, the rows of corn, meadowlarks' repeated tune. This is the land where I was born. Now in time's quicksand, sunk too soon. Very sad. Sometimes I sing and rehearse and I start crying. I just have to stop. Hope that doesn't happen tonight. I'm just like, that's a sad one. Snake in the Strawberries is like that. The Movers is like that. Okay, I'm going to do Woody Guthrie, Talking Blues, only it'll be a Hearst poem. Oh, there's the Movers. Good, thank you. Never mind, that's coming up next. This is, I wanted to demonstrate the CD, and I'm going to play the background to the lead voice, and I'm going to sing the lead voice, and everybody else on the CD is going to play behind me. It really works out well. Tom Tapman at Catamount Studios in Cedar Falls produced the CD. And I said, Tom, can you make that without my singing? He said, fine, good, works for me. So he took out my voice, and I'll supply it right here. The rest of it is a string quartet, 2 backup singers, a bass player, and a couple of other musicians that are sort of back there somewhere, unidentified, called The Movers. This is a poem about the tenant farmers. They had to leave the land whenever the owner said, okay, we didn't make enough money last year, we're not gonna farm this year, it's gonna lie fallow, or sorry, we think someone else can do it better, whatever. So every March, from Maplehurst Farm, he would watch the tenant farmers leave. And they would leave the land and just go down the road, and nobody quite knew where. They were the poorest of the poor. And he noticed that, and he felt terrible for them, but of course, that was the system at the time, and nobody could do anything. So this is a 1937 poem, just really still during the Depression. I highly recommend a string quartet for for your songs if you need somebody to enhance them. The arrangements were by John Schwabe on the UNI faculty. He also plays the bass. The east wind whips the skirts of the snow with a passing shower. Over Iowa on the 1st of March, wheels churn up deep in the mud, grit their teeth across the icy roads. Home is only a shadow, flying across the wind in a twisted swirl of snowflakes. Traveling down the road in an old lumber wagon full of two shaggy dormitories whose bones are too big for their flesh. Even the wild goose is not so homeless as these movers, peering ahead through the sliding curtain of March rain they pass. With the furniture of home packed in a wagon, past corner, past grove, to the hilltop they go, till only chair legs point from the skyline like roots of trees torn from the earth. This the parade of landless, the tenants, the dispossessed. Out of their Canaan they march, with Moses asleep in the Bible. Who will call them back? Who will ask, are you the chosen people? Do you inherit only a backward glance, and a cry, and a heartbreak? Are you the meek, but the early twilight trumps like a shawl on their shoulders, and sullen water slowly fills wagon ruts and the hoof prints? The east wind whips the skirts of the snow with a passing shower. Over Iowa the 1st of March, wheels churn up deep in the mud, grit their teeth across the icy roads. Thank you. I think Tom Tappan did a great job, and it took about a month of mixing and calling in musicians and doing all kinds of steady work at the console. Do you have 70 times 7 up there? Right. The one thing Jim Hearst would not do is feel sorry for himself. He never did. He never lamented or complained. He just went about his life. But he wrote one poem that strongly hints of dissatisfaction with his condition. 70 times 7 is actually probably one of the saddest poems he wrote. And do you know what the reference to 70 times 7 is? Does anyone know the biblical? Right. What's do- right. The shepherd says to Jesus, how many times should we forgive someone who's wronged us? 7? And Jesus says, forgive them 70 times 7. Way more than you think you need to forgive. And Hearst didn't buy it. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. And this is that poem. You'll notice something very strange about the time signature on this, if you know anything about music. Any music theory fanatics in here? All right? Well, you tell me what's strange about this, because we all had trouble with this, but I had to do this. And by the way, this is also another very old tune, a Mummer's song, sect of the Quakers, probably 400-500 years old. In Nottingham town, not a soul would look up, not a soul would look up, not a soul would look down. And does that sound familiar at all to those of you that know Bob Dylan? You masters of war. So, we all borrow. We all borrow melodies wherever we can. I thought it worked for his poem, 70 times 7. Let rain discover some other door. I shall not uncover mine anymore. The pale voices quicken on the dark pane, gather and thicken in low refrain. Bird and bee are lying under their leaf. My heart is crying its ancient grief. Where under heaven can it be done? 70 times 7 is only 1. 70 times 7 is only 1. You only forgive once. That's, as I say. Oh, could we get up the threat of violence? Is that up there now?
Which one? Upstairs.
The Did a flat pick just drop out? I have more trouble with flat picks. It was right here in the stone and now it's gone. Oh, there it is. It's black. Black on black. No, thank you. Appreciate the effort. Well.
Are you looking for more poems or?
No, I was looking for little flat pick more. Once those are lost, they really stay lost. All right, Woody Guthrie wrote a lot of talking blues. He pioneered this form. Well, sorry. D string went way flat. This is the talking blues. If you want to get to heaven, let me tell you what to do. Grease your feet with a little mutton stew. Slide right out of the devil's hand. Use on into the promised land. Gotta take it easy. go greasy. And then years ago, I got an advanced degree from the University of Iowa. And I thought, nobody's ever really made fun of getting a PhD. I'll write a talking blues called Talking PhD Blues. Well, I once thought a BA would be enough. Then they said to get an MA or things get tough. Now they say I gotta have a PhD because you gotta learn a lot about a little to please. First you get your BA, then you get your MA, then you get your PhD. If you haven't got a higher education, well, you better stay away from me. And you better go get your degree. So I went to grad school and I took a lot of classes. I wore out my butt in 3 pair of glasses. I wrote a lot of papers and I slung a lot of bull and I took a lot of tests and made sure my head was full. Finally, they told me that I was through. Took my comps of foreign language, wrote my dissertation too of a certain kind of knowledge. I know I've got a wealth because I spent 5 years studying Chaucer's health. Ask me anything you want about a stomach flu, the number of colds you had in 1382. But if you want to know about the wife of Bass' tail, that's a part of the anatomy comps that I failed. So, talking blues. So, the poem Threat of Violence, believe it or not, works as a Woody Guthrie talking blues. Well, now, icicles dripped in the January thaw and prompted me to buy a board of seed done myself for a spring-picked crop. Bloodlines in the young boars Henry Jensen raised suited me, and I went to see him. He picked up a 3-inch post as we entered the barnyard. Well, I just want to look at one, I said, not knock it on the head. He grinned. That bull is a mean bastard, ripe for mischief. I rode shorthorn bulls never made much trouble, but I'd heard dairy bulls are different. This Holstein saw us coming, man. He looked big and ugly. Head up, tail arched, he pawed the ground and bellered. Then he came right at us. I shrank in my clothes, but Henry marched to meet him. He slammed that post across the bull's nose, made the bull stagger, back off, shake his horns. Well, I bought a boar, but we did not turn our backs. Now, whenever a threat of violence shakes our courage, I remember Henry and his bull. You see how the talking blues work? Okay. I think we just have a couple more here. This is hoo-hoo. Do you have hoo-hoo? Hoo-hoo. The hardest question anybody asks themselves, and we do it quite a bit, I think, at least those of us that are inclined to introspection. Who are we? Who am I? Where do I come from? What am I doing? And Hearst wrote this powerful poem about it, 1977, called Who? Do you ever stop to wonder, say right now this morning, what you'd see in the mirror with your mask off? I don't mean casual glimpses when you are shaving or combing your hair or cleaning your blackheads, when you hardly see anybody at home, nor when you play a role, a time when you are jealous and thoughts about the girl cut like fine wires and your face snarls, or maybe at a party you took one drink too many and had a drink, took one drink too many and made an ass of yourself, and you can see the shame look in your eyes, all right? No. I mean eyeball to eyeball, you look that guy in the mirror right in the face without any cover-up, and my God, he's a stranger. Someone you never saw before, a face drowned in a sea of glass floats gently on the surface, caught in the drifting weeds of time, mute in the shadow of my question. Who are you? I almost never sing that or read it without getting a shiver or two, because that is really a powerful question. And I don't think anybody really has an answer. I know who I am. Raise your hands, those of you that know who you are. Okay, well, to end the evening, we're going to finish with a kind of parody. It's how a electrical, or rather a mechanical engineer or a technical writer would describe a cow. So what is a cow? There's your answer right there. Turn up. I need to turn up a little volume here. What is a cow? Now a cow's a completely automatic milk manufacturing machine. It is encased in untanned leather and mounted on 4 vertical movable supports, one on each corner. Oh yeah. Now the front end contains a cutting and grinding mechanism, as well as headlights, air inlet exhaust, a bumper and a foghorn. The central section houses a hydrochemical conversion plant. This consists of 4 fermentation and storage tanks mounted in series by an intricate network of flexible plumbing. Oh yeah. This section also contains a heating plant, complete with automatic temperature controls, pumping station, and main ventilating system. The waste disposal apparatus is located at the rear of the central section. Oh, yeah. In brief, the externally visible features are 2 lookers, 2 hookers, 4 hanger downers, 4 stander uppers, and a swishy wishy. Oh yeah. And a swishy wishy. Oh, yeah. Now there is a similar machine known as a bull, which should not be confused with a cow. It produces no milk, but has other interesting uses. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Other interesting uses. Thank you very much, and thanks for coming out. I appreciate your attention, and this is not easy stuff, really, but it's fun, and I think you really can get a feel for Hearst's poetry, I think, with the music added. We'll see. Well, any questions, comments, issues, complaints? I take any and all complaints. Okay. Is that anything more we need to say?
Just a couple of
Okay.
things. We don't have the collected works of James Hearst, but we do have The Good Earth, 3 Poets of the Prairie,
Yes.
Paul Ingle, William Stafford, and James Hearst, and it's available here at the library. And also A Countryman.
Yeah.
So we have those 2, and we could certainly either purchase or borrow your collected works of
Sure.
James
And they're
Hearst.
available. It's available from Amazon, and also the Hearst Center has copies coming in.
Oh, the
So you
Hearst
can
Center, the
order
Hearst
from
Center
Hearst
is,
Center in Cedar Falls, right?
is the Hearst Center named for James?
Yes, it's his
Hearst?
house. He bequeathed his house to the city of Cedar Falls, and they turned it architecturally into an art center. So it's a James and Merle Hearst Center for the Arts.
Oh, because
in
I hear
Cedar
it
Falls.
referenced all the time, but I didn't
Right.
realize it was one
That's
and
what
the
it is.
same.
It's his house on Surrey Boulevard, right?
Oh.
Yeah, I had classes in the basement where I go sing now. Right? Yeah, it's quite a deal he did for the
Oh.
city. He's a generous man. He really was.
I just wanted to say that music and poetry are, I think they go really well together. I ended up at a Mission Creek performance on last Saturday night,
Uh-huh.
and Mission Creek is an arts festival that was in Iowa City last week, and there was a
Right.
poet who opened for the
Uh-huh.
main attraction, and he did his poetry to music, and it was fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really, really wonderful.
So he had written the poems first, and then he wrote music for his poem, or did they start? Oh, okay.
It was background music, but were you there?
So you know.
Yeah, it was, I thought, oh, this is crazy. He came out and he put a beach ball down on the stage at the Englert Theater, and then he turned on an amplifier and
Yeah.
no, this isn't gonna work. And by the time he was done, I didn't want him to stop. It was really,
Really?
really
Okay.
wonderful. He had the audience.
Do you happen to know his name? by any
His
chance?
name is Derek. He's from Austin, Texas, and he's a professional poet. And it was really, really good.
Right,
So,
okay.
and he'd been at an earlier performance.
Okay.
The other thing I want to say about National Poetry Month, if you don't mind, is
Sure.
if you know any young poets, we call them tweens here at the library, we're having a poetry workshop on Saturday, 3 days. It's from 2 to 4 o'clock, and they do have to sign up for that. And then if you are a poet yourself out here in the audience, whether or not you sing along, we have an open mic event next Monday in this room, and that'll be at 7 p.m. And then the Johnson County, Iowa City Johnson County Reading Aloud group, it's a group of seniors, although some of them are quite young seniors, my age, so I don't think they're really seniors, actually, are reading aloud on the 28th of April from noon to 1. So bring a sack lunch and come and hear them read. They're really, really good. So finally, I'd like to thank you again and the Iowa Humanities Board, or Humanities Iowa. This was a wonderful performance. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Thanks for being here.